Months and months of work have led to this, the fantasy football playoffs. We let you know who you can and can't trust for the big dance. All this and more on tonight's In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
Cause I've been in tune, out of touch, coming off the bench, trying to shake the funk, check your stat line, see who's up, that over under hit too clutch.
And I'm trying to avoid getting carried away with the jet sweep, sleeping on a trick play, predicting all of my moves like they seen every play. So I'm running it back, head down, get out of my way. And it's for the law with only one thing to do. I guess I'll say a prayer and put it all on the line for you, what they don't know. Something they haven't seen. I find a gap off the screen and hit them right in between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it.
Just one thing to say, yeah, what they don't know. Something they haven't seen. I'm off that mean Joe Green. It got me fading between. Yeah, I got it, and I got it. The In Between Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right. It is December 12th, 2023. The NFL season, it's brought us quite the storylines, folks. We got an Italian fella running around New Jersey. We got Patrick Mahomes looking mortal. And is Tyreek Hill the MVP? We're going to chat about all that tonight. My name is Seth Woolcock, and I am joined by quite the cast of characters. Riding shotgun is the man going to head with me in the IBT Office League Championship this week, Eric Romoff. Eric, what's up? How are we doing tonight? And I hope you enjoy your last week of being a non-loser.
Oh man, I'm gonna be feeling a lot better next week when I'm flying that victory flag. I have no idea how you keep doing this. We've talked about this on the show, but like every single week you've been the second to lowest scorer. And then kudos, last week came out and just absolutely boat raced us. I had my first sweat of the year, so wouldn't have it any other way than for us to go head to head for the whole thing.
Absolutely. Well, I'm happy to have you here tonight with us. And also joining us, folks, is an absolute treat, the inaugural FSWA Hall of Famer. Inaugural means first. Senior writer at the Game Day, fantasy writer for the Seahawks, host on SiriusXM and Roto Baller. He's Scott Engel. Scott, how are we doing tonight? It's so good to have you on the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here as we get the fantasy playoffs started. Let's get in the huddle like the Legion of Boom did and just go, who's got your back? I got your back. Who's got your back? I got your back. Who's got that sway? I got that sway. Sway. We got to get fired up for the fantasy playoffs.
Let's go. And Scott, are you joining us from the New York City area? Is that correct?
Yes, Queens, New York, not far from Citi Field. Hopefully it'll be the home of Yamamoto, but I don't know about that.
There we go. Missed out on the Shohei sweepstakes, but you do have Tommy DeVito in town. How are we feeling about the Italian stallion, Tommy Cutlets? How's it shaking out there? What are the vibes like in New York City?
Well, I don't think the Mets were ever in on Ohtani, but as far as Tommy DeVito, it's like, for those who've watched the NBA for a little while, it's like insanity around here, and
yes,
he's just really captured everybody's imagination. Fantasy-wise and NFL-wise, this could be short-lived, but you got to enjoy it while it's happening. People are excited about the Giants, and I don't think you can say that in the last 10 years. They've started to embrace a player, but you got to be careful, both real life and in fantasy, because as we've seen with Josh Doubs, sometimes these backup quarterbacks, as soon as there's enough film on them, they kind of fizzle out. Not saying it will happen, but it could happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a risky game. We'll talk about it later in the scope a little more about on Tommy DeVito, the Italian stallion. But I'm glad to hear the vibes are going well out there. I'm sure the sub shops are just selling out right now, Eric.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Like, I mean, everyone loves a hometown kid and an underdog story, and Tommy DeVito is checking all the boxes. And for Giants fan, like, this was looking like an entirely lost season. I still don't expect them to really make any meaningful noise down the stretch run, but like a super fun storyline to get this fan base circled around.
A little gabagoo. What do you what do you think, Scott? A little gabagoo for you?
Yeah, it's fun to see. I mean, I'm a Mets fan and a Knicks fan, but otherwise I'm a Seahawks fan. It's just, the Giants and the Jets have been down for so long, just to see them rally around a player. And I kind of know the feeling with the Knicks, when Julius Randle first had that comeback player of the year sort of run. It's, sometimes the city will rally around the player. Like right now, Jalen Brunson doesn't have to pay for a meal anywhere in New York City right now. And probably Juan Soto won't have to either. So everybody wants a chicken cutlet right now. I think I'm more in the mood for maybe a meatball sub, but that's what everybody wants.
There we go. Well, I'm excited to have you and capture that little New York City vibe here this week. Looks like we got some IBT family members in the chat. Tyler, what's up, man? Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. We got the Fantasy Football Advice Network joining us as well. We appreciate you guys over there. And thank you guys for the continued support here on the channel. We're continuing to grow. Also over on the website, we have a lot of great content coming out for you, whether you enjoy the fantasy football, the fantasy NASCAR and betting scene over there. PGA's in a little bit of a lull until January, but we still got some blogs hitting the scenes for that. And then entertainment content. If you need that scoop over there on what's streaming right now, we got it for you, Scott.
Yeah, and I'm into all of that. I was telling you guys, I'm a DFS NASCAR player, but I'm nowhere near as good as my son, Sean Engel of Guru Elite. Check him out at Shawnee 247, 12-time DraftKings tournament winner in DFS NASCAR.
There we go. He's got me beat by about 9. So shout out Sean. Definitely excited to get him on the back road sometime this upcoming season. Looks like we got Albert in the chat as well already. What's up, Albert? Good to see you, man. Guys, let's go ahead and jump into the fantasy football Trusto-meter and talk about who's going to burn us and who can we ride with into the fantasy football sunset here. Let's talk about it in temperature check.
Temperature check.
That's really spicy. Holy
All right, so hot. And let's talk about some quarterbacks who haven't been so hot lately. Let's start with Tua. How are we feeling about Tua, gentlemen? Because as of week 7, he's the QB 25 on a points per game basis, single digits in 2 of his last 3 games. And he's got the Jets, Dallas, and Baltimore coming up, Scott. That terrifies me.
I wouldn't say it terrifies me. It does concern me. Let's see how healthy Tyreek Hill is. The thing with the Dolphins is, and I was talking about this on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio this morning on Roto Bowler Radio. It's the Dolphins are very good at what they do, but they're also very predictable. And when you face a good defense like the Jets, you're not going to put up the numbers. But we've seen with Seattle 2 weeks ago that Dallas is not exactly a shutdown defense, and neither the Ravens. The Ravens have been giving up a lot of points either. So I'm more concerned about that Jets game, and I want to see how Tyreek Hill's ankle is. My worry with the Dolphins overall is how do they adjust when they play from behind, when they face a defense that – because all it is they're great. They're fun to watch, but it's the same thing every time you watch them.
Yeah.
And it's either stop it. We're so good at this, you try to stop it. And, when they face an opponent that can stop it, I get concerned about that. But it's really hard to bench Tua Tagovailoa with the weapons he has and how good that offense is. I'd probably still start him against Baltimore and Dallas. But we saw that without Tyreek Hill, that offense just becomes totally different.
Comes a little bit more flat, a little bit more one-dimensional, certainly. Eric, on a scale from 1 to 10, where is your trust at for Tua? I'd say I'm probably like maybe a lukewarm 5, maybe. I don't have much faith. I think I'm good.
I would probably put him at like a 6.5 or 7. That Jets game is certainly the one to be most concerned about. But
Okay.
as I've been banging the drum all season, happiness is a function of expectation. Tua has been playing, at least if you factor out this last game, which was actually statistically his worst on the year, he's been playing pretty much up to the level that you were expecting, right? Prior to this week, he was QB 13 on points per game average, 18.4 fantasy points. That's perfectly fine for what you drafted Tua to be, right? So like the theory is you should have enough pieces around him to where, kind of back end QB1 play is going to be sufficient. But also look at the quarterback landscape out there today. Like
Yeah.
there are not many guys that you're going to feel better about than Tua Tags heading down the stretch run, right? Like I think we're at 54 different quarterbacks that have started games so far this year. We're probably going to see 55 and 56 this week. I mean, like, it is an absolute war zone out there. So getting a guy that can stay healthy and can get you, into the high teens, low 20s pretty reliably that's at a premium heading into the playoffs right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, you make a good point, man. It's been tough. If you are a Tua manager, I don't know if you're in the playoffs right now because it has been a little disappointing down the stretch. Looks like we have Stacy saying, "Hi guys, good to see you, Stacy. Thanks for tuning in." We got Mr. Scampers. Hello, IBTers. Good to see you, Scamps. And Hoove commenting on the stash. I'm surprised it took this long. I've been sporting it for a couple weeks. I was trying to go full beard with it. Couldn't commit. I had to shave the rest of it. I'm just going stash here on out. So trying to be like Scott and Eric out here, and I just can't yet. I'm just a little too young yet. Field Yates told me, Scott, that I would probably be 30 and I will still want to grow a beard. I was hoping this could be the year. It doesn't seem like it is.
You just gotta believe in yourself.
Just don't shave for the next 10 years. You'll be fine.
Yeah. See,
I'm too impatient. I'm the guy who dropped Dak Prescott this year. I'm the definition of impatience.
Oh no, switchy.
Wow, that is impatient.
Yeah. Eric had to sit here like for 2 weeks in a row telling me not to do it, and I couldn't help it. Looks like Mr. Scamper saying losing Connor Williams is huge, absolutely, and that
whole offensive line is banged up.
Yeah, I think they had 4 backups in here on Monday night, and I think that paid a big dividends there. And HoovTube feeling the Foxworthy. Yeah, I guess little Jeff Foxworthy action. That's not a terrible comp. How are we feeling, Eric, about Patty Mahomes? And there's a conversation going around the internet right now. He's the biggest bust of the season. I don't think it is. I think it's T. Higgins for me. But quarterback 17 on a points per game basis since week 7. Is there any love for Patrick Mahomes? New England, Las Vegas, and Cincinnati. A pretty good schedule after New England here. Does he go scorched earth though, and just because he's pissed off and takes revenge here?
Yeah. So stop me when you've heard this before. Happiness is a function of expectations. Based on where you draft Patrick Mahomes, you are not feeling good about the productivity you've gotten so far. I don't think there's any cause for looking for alternatives, right? I've answered a ton of questions of Patrick Mahomes or X already through the early part of this week, and that's very much so a knee-jerk reaction. And look, I think we can walk down narrative street and say that he's going to be out there with a chip on his shoulder and have a point to prove, and there may be some credence to that. Mm-hmm. I think the bigger things to consider: A, his matchups down the stretch run are absolutely glorious, and B, it feels like they've really come to the realization that getting the ball to Rashee Rice is their most viable option outside of Travis Kelce, right? Like they're kind of dipping their toe in over the course of the season, and it feels like this last week the light bulb really went off where their passing game needs to go almost exclusively through Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice, and I think that will help point the arrow up for Mahomes down the stretch.
Scott, I think I'm 100% with Eric here. at least that there is some upside because Rice saw a career high in snaps. He saw a career high in routes ran here in week 14. Do you think we've seen the worst of Patrick Mahomes? Do you think that's behind us?
I think what you look for in Patrick Mahomes right now is a solid floor. And if you're getting explosive games, you're not necessarily expecting it as much as you used to, but you will take it as a bonus. I think with the schedule, that he's not going to hurt you. How much he's going to help you, I don't even know. With this wide receiver room out of Rashee Rice, he can be as pissed off as he wants. He's not going to be able to impose his will like he did in the past. And probably the wide receiver room is part of the reason why he's pissed off. And, I saw some NFL expert actually say that experts actually say that it was out of frustration because outside of Rashee Rice, this is a terrible wide receiver room. They were mediocre last year, and now they're worse than mediocre. It's like, how can losing Juju Smith-Schuster actually make a wide receiver crew worse? It was baffling to me. But Mahomes is not going to be the explosive guy that you drafted in the third round, but he's not going to hurt you either, and there might be a spike game or two ahead.
Okay. And it's funny because I've always been the biggest MVS hater, and MVS isn't even the problem because they don't really give him the ball. It's more Justin Watson can't fucking catch, and they keep feeding him like so much. It's just terrible. It's third on the team in targets right now with 40. Kadarius Toney just hurts his team in every way with the negative plays, and Sky Moore can't get open to save his life. Like he's up there with the guys running a ton of routes and just getting no separation at all. 76 among wide receivers.
Sky Moore is good for a screen pass once every 2 weeks.
It's crazy.
His name is Screen Moore because he can't catch anything else.
Yeah, it's like we were getting better production back in the day when there was still Tyreek Hill, but even from those third and fourth fiddle guys,
even Byron Pringle was better than the guys.
McCole Hardman, Hardman, like all these junk players. So it sounds like we're kind of I would say a 7 would probably be my confidence in Patrick Mahomes, 7.5 maybe rest of the way. Scott, do you have a number that digresses from that?
No, I think I'm with you. I'm not looking for these explosive games, but I'm not taking them out of my lineup either.
Okay. Let's go to the Kansas City backfield. This is a pretty interesting late developing story in the week. No, Isaiah Pacheco led to exactly what I think we kind of thought it would. Eric, Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting more of the rushing opportunity, but Jerick McKinnon had that touchdown equity with him. Saw 3 targets, got 4 rushing attempts for McKinnon, finishes the day with 45% of the snaps. And, if you had to plug either of these guys in, I don't think you're not mad about it. They got you about what you could expect. Now it's New England, Las Vegas, and Cincinnati, as pointed out. Pretty good run schedule outside of New England there. Cincinnati has been a lot better against the run in recent weeks. So where are we at here on this backfield if no Pacheco moving forward?
Yeah, I mean it's fine for like a flex fill-in, right? Like if you are the Isaiah Pacheco manager, either of these guys are viable options. You mentioned McKinnon, he got the score, so obviously his fantasy production is going to look a little bit more flashy, but realistically, these guys split the time on the field almost perfectly down the middle.
Yep.
Jerick McKinnon 45% of snaps, CEH 48. CEH was far and away the more involved ball carrier, 65% of rushing attempts compared to 24% for McKinnon. The thing that was kind of surprising, both of them had an 11% target share, right? You would think that the line of demarcation would be much more passing work for McKinnon, but I mean, look, if CEH is gonna see more rushing opportunity and he's gonna catch a couple passes, I would probably err on that side if I had to pick between the two. But realistically, if you have Pacheco on your bench, either of these guys can at least help you kind of tread water until he gets healthy.
How do you feel about it, Scott?
Yeah, I don't think we're treading water. I think we're drowning with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Confidence meter maybe 4.
Okay.
If we were playing in a league where fantasy mediocrity, we were looking for that, he'd be the first overall pick. just like the yardage wasn't there. He doesn't get in the end zone. 6 starts last year, averaged 43 yards rushing per game, lost. Clyde Edwards-Helaire hasn't been anything in fantasy since his NFL debut. Maybe once every 5-6 weeks he'll have a decent game. McKinnon's got to get in the end zone. He didn't get the receptions this week. Like, if I have to start either one of these guys in the fantasy playoffs, I'm starting to think about my fantasy baseball draft.
Fair enough. Get those NASCAR DFS lineups set as well.
Yeah. What is Daytona? Yeah. When's that race at the Coliseum? Yeah. Let's start looking ahead, because the running game is a second thought to this team. They need 2 running backs to replace Pacheco, and one's mediocre and the other one has no floor. It's they're probably at least 30 guys I'm going to rank over them this week.
So don't get Q is what I'm saying, or what you're saying. It sounds like.
How about don't get CEH?
Okay. fair
now, let me
enough.
be clear about something. I'm talking about these players as fantasy guys. I don't say things like they're not good at football, because being a fantasy producer and being an NFL player are 2 different things.
100%. I appreciate that the clarification. We got Austin, this is my brother, in the chat saying Mahomes is going to win out and throw 400 plus next week. He's been a ride or die with Mahomes this season. Has a great team, kind of in spite of him, not because of him, it seems like. And Hoove Tube, the monologue there from Scott on CH got him cracking up a little bit. So let's talk about Devin Singletary. Is this a guy we would maybe consider starting above the likes of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jerick McKinnon? 57% of snaps here. They pulled the old switcheroo again on us. It's so frustrating, because a lot of people started him in week number 13, got dumped on, and then comes out, has a pretty nice game, Eric. This has been your guy for a long time, but we still saw Dare Agumbawali, 29% of snaps, most red zone snaps and targets. So for Singletary on the team, Cleveland, Tennessee is up next for him. Where's your confidence on him?
Yeah, pretty low. I guess to your first question, he's probably going to fall right around that same range as the Chiefs ball carriers, right? High 20s best case, low to mid 30s realistically. The issue is really twofold, right? I'll say it's threefold. CJ Stroud is in the concussion protocol largely this year. That has at least primarily led to 1 game absence. We'll see how he progresses through the practice reports this week. But, obviously if he's not out there, this offense isn't nearly as effective with Davis Mills under center. Yep. Then you have the reality that this is probably going to be a 3-way split for the majority of the stretch run. I do think Singletary continues to get the lion's share of that opportunity, but splitting 3 ways is obviously going to limit its upside. And then the thing that really gives me concern is that schedule. Tennessee, Cleveland, Tennessee is a murderer's row of run defenses that he's facing. So, even if he is going to get, 55, 60, maybe he sees it walk up to 65% of the workload or of the opportunity in that backfield. I mean, he's going to have a tough time sledding against those 3 teams. He's not going to see the 5 yards per carry that he put up last week. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to feel great, but if he's the best option, I mean, he's a low end kind of flex guy.
Any love, Scott? Any love for the kid?
Yeah, respectfully, Eric, Tennessee used to be part of the murderer's row, but since losing Jeffrey Simmons, they're not as scary against the run.
Yeah.
We saw the Miami running backs just tearing big holes in that defense last night as we record this. Singletary, they get down near the end zone, he'll likely be the goal line back. I like him okay as a flex. I'd rather use him than Clyde Edwards-Helaire in fantasy. I think he's got like 3 touchdowns in his last 5 games. When we talk fantasy, we usually don't mention Dario Agumbawali, so credit to you guys. I don't see him as a threat. We've talked about biggest busts. 2 of the biggest busts this year at running back, Dameon Pierce and Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
Dameon Pierce is not a threat anymore. Devin Singletary playing better fantasy-wise than he did in Buffalo in the past. I like him as a flex. Cleveland, not a great matchup, but as fantasy pros just pointed out, they do miss a lot of tackles. So respectfully, I do disagree with Eric on the
Okay.
schedule here, and I think he could be a decent play.
I like it. Yeah, and the only reason I bring up Dare is because it's fucking annoying seeing him out there 29% of the time. It's like,
Yeah, but you can't expect Singletary to get 80% of the snaps.
no, you're right.
He gets the highest quality carries.
I think this has been like a big Joe Boo backfield for us like all season because Eric was all in on Pierce coming into the year, and then we shifted to Singletary honestly before the public did for a long time, and we've been riding the wave, but it's just been up and down. But I have a lot of Singletary, so I'm going to believe what Scott said, and we'll leave it at that here with the Houston backfield. What about this Seattle backfield? This is another one that all of a sudden we have a little bit of pause. Charbonnett looked like the better runner in week 14, but Walker had 4 catches for 33 yards in this one. Scott, what is your confidence level on Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnett?
You check out my latest Seahawks.com fantasy insider. I cover the whole league, but I lead with Kenneth Walker this week. Some people might not be confident in him after seeing rushing for 21 yards, but that was a brutal matchup in his first game back from a quadriceps injury. Still, this guy just does everything he can to make tacklers miss. Juke, leap, somersault, whatever he can. He's electric. And people will look at this Eagles defense and say, oh, bad matchup. The Eagles have actually ranked 26 in fantasy points in rushing yards allowed to running backs over the last 4 weeks. They're not a shutdown run defense. And the pass defense, 29th in the league. That'll set them up for some short yardage. Charbonnett had 2 good runs. He was quiet the rest of the day. This is still Kenneth Walker's backfield. My kind of a tough schedule remaining, but my confidence level in him is about an 8.
Okay, I love it. And I think the one play in that game that really showed a little bit of Kenneth Walker's dynamics was he caught the ball and he was way behind the line of scrimmage and totally reversed the field and ended up getting maybe 10, 12 yards out of it. I was just amazed. I was like, oh my God. Like most
it's like he ran 20 yards laterally and then 12 yards ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric, any digression for you on the confidence level for Kenneth Walker here? Philly, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, my Pittsburgh Steelers to close it out.
Yeah, I'm completely in lockstep with Scott here, right? Kenneth Walker is certainly the preferred option in that backfield. I agree that you can have a pretty high level of confidence in him down the stretch run, right? The floor is certainly much higher, but with that high motor type of running style that he brings on every single play, that the kid takes no plays off. The upside is still there, and this is a Seattle team that they really made it a point of emphasis to give him opportunities when they're in scoring position through his young career. So I mean it's hard to find that combination of floor and upside. So for the upcoming 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how your playoffs are formatted, I mean, you have to feel pretty good firing up Walker.
Yeah, Charbonnet is a compliment. He's still learning. You see him break off a good run or two, but then for a while it's just 2 yards, 2 yards, 3 yards, 3 yards. He's not as explosive as Walker. They wanted to have him as that physical complement to Walker. I think Charbonnet is somebody more I want in a dynasty than a seasonal.
Right now, from a betting perspective, Scott, would you be betting on the Seahawks to make the playoff? I'm not sure what the line is right now, but is that something you would be invested in?
Why are you gonna ask me this? No, I don't think it's happening.
Oh, okay.
They lose to Philadelphia. Then they fall to 6-8, and then you figure they probably win one of their last 3. They're an 8-9 team. It's been a frustrating season.
I like them still. Like DK Metcalf has kind of come to fruition a little bit. I called him a potential league winner about a month or so ago. So been happy to see that. But
fantasy wise, you love it. I mean,
you
love Jackson Smith and Jigba in the slot against the Eagles this week.
Yeah, 100%. Great matchups coming up. But as far as the real life prospects of the Seahawks playoff chances, We'll see. Speaking of seeing and speaking of my Pittsburgh Steelers, let's talk about it. Najee Harris, Jaylen Warren. Scott, can you make sense of this? Because this is just so frustrating. It's kind of dead even as far as snaps and touches. We know Najee's going to see more red zone work. Warren's going to get a little more targets. Maserati Mitch loves to throw to the running backs, but vibes just aren't great in Pittsburgh out here. Indy, Cincinnati, Seattle, 3 sweet-ass matchups, but I'm feeling a little bummed out about this Pittsburgh backfield.
Wow, Maserati Mitch. You know, how about that? To me, it's more like Mad TV Mitch. You know, it's just
Mazda Mitch.
I have no confidence in this offense with Mitch Trubisky at the controls. I don't care what the matchups are. Some players can take advantage of matchups. Teams will load up against the running game. They won't have scoring opportunities. The only player I really want to start is Deontay Johnson. This is a bad offense with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, you guys were chanting for Mason Rudolph.
I know, dude.
Maybe Maserati Mason is more like it. You know, it's just the Mitch Trubisky's just not good. I hate to say it, you know, for as a Steelers quarterback, I'd say I don't want to talk players down as NFL players, but it's really bad. You know, if this offense can get on track, it's a timeshare with Najee Harris maybe score more of the touchdowns and Jaylen Warren get more of the receptions, but you know, it's more like macaroni, Mitch.
Yes, sir.
Not even the Kraft brand, huh? Just the off brand.
Yeah, just like whatever you find in Dollar General.
little chef covered over there, macaroni Mitch. I love it. So definitely like Singletary, Clyde, Jerick McKinnon, any of these guys over Najee and Jaylen Warren, at least for this week, you think? Indy's the matchup?
Well, we don't know if Najee's playing or not. Yeah,
I guess that's true. If Jalen's all alone, you are starting him, but
over Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like, you know, for sure. I mean, Indianapolis doesn't have a good run defense, but you know, with Trubisky a quarterback, like how many touchdown opportunities did Najee Harris have?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Trubisky makes Zach Wilson look like a Pro Bowler.
Honestly, I would love Zach Wilson right now in Pittsburgh. I don't think we have
one
a top
game. Let's not
get
crazy.
I'm just saying it was I'd rather have Tommy DeVito, Zach Wilson, Jake Browning. Like I don't think we have a top 45 quarterback. That I mean, even when Kenny's healthy. So vibes aren't great.
Hey, Cam Newton says he can still play. So
let's go.
Call up old Bob Griffin. He's putting out those workout tapes still, right?
Dude, I would take Bob. I would take Big Ben. Like, get Big Ben back out there right now, Eric. Let's sign that. I mean,
Big Ben's got to be like 400 pounds right now.
So is Flacco. Flacco's still slinging it out there.
Yeah, Flacco's been terrific these last 2 games.
Yeah.
He's actually a good fantasy backup for the playoffs because you have to have insurance. You never know who can get injured. A lot of times people draft and not draft a backup quarterback, but we've seen so many go down that you want to have a good one for the playoffs.
I'm with you there. So what? Round it out. Let's call it a 4, a 3 for these running backs. Scott might be in a 2. He does not like macaroni Mitch at the controls here. Call it a 2, 3.
I would say with Warren, I'm at a 4. Harris, I'm at a 3.
Okay. All right. Scott has spoken. Let's talk Ravens. Odell Beckham Jr., he's cashed in lately. So has Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely. And kind of without Mark Andrews, we're getting a little bit of concentration of these targets to these guys. We're still seeing a lot of Rashad Bateman. Nelson Aguilar still poking his, little can't catch a ball, grabby hands in the pie a little bit as well. But are these the games we should expect with the Ravens moving forward, Scott? Because I don't know if they'll be thrown 40 plus times much, but it is the Jaguars, 49ers, and Dolphins. Like those are the matchups that might make them throw this much again.
Yeah, Jacksonville, one of the worst teams against tight ends. So you like Likely this week. I see what I did there back to back. Likely. I like Likely. I don't know what I'm doing there. But he's going to get more involved with the offense. Odell Beckham Jr. should be the top fantasy waiver wire pickup and wide receiver. I do a waiver wire column on thegameday.com every week, and I started recommending Beckham like 3 weeks ago. Beckham is recapturing a lot of his past form, and he's easily the best wide receiver that Lamar Jackson has been missing and has ever played with. He's gotten a lot of targets recently, 90-plus yards, I think, in 2 of his last 3 games. The targets haven't translated a lot of catches. They will, but there's splash plays there. Lamar Jackson is like, wow, look at this, an open wide receiver downfield. Bam! It's Odell Beckham Jr. just like a must-start, almost a must-start fantasy wide receiver 3 for me, or flex fill-in. I wouldn't say must-start. I shouldn't say that, but
in a 2 flex or 3 wide receiver league,
strong consideration for fantasy wide receiver 3 every week. And I had a chance to do a sit-down interview with Odell for like an hour when he was with the Giants.
Ooh.
I don't care what anybody says about him. He's a good dude. And I'm happy to see him playing well, and he's a real key for that Ravens team. Zay Flowers kind of just used to be like, okay, let's throw him a screen and see if he can get 8 yards, and now he's starting to improve. His route tree is starting to expand. So I think Baltimore's going to be scary because it seems like they're coming together at the right time, so that's good for them betting-wise in terms of second best odds to win the Super Bowl. Although I think whoever wins the NFC is winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Good odds to win the AFC Championship. They're they're the best team in the AFC right now, and you also have to ride with them fantasy wise. I think they've scored 30 points in like 5 of their last 6 games.
They've been heating up. Eric, are you as optimistic on OBJ, Zay Flowers, and likely as our friend Scott here? And where would you put them on the trust-o-meter?
Yeah, I'm equally as bullish, right? I think likely is probably going to be the most inconsistent of the lot, but still, very much so in starting tight end territory every single week in these plus matchups like the ones that he has coming up this week. Has some upside to be inside the top 5 or top 3 at the position, right? So you love to see that out of a tight end. Their usage of Odell Beckham's kind of interesting, right? Because they're not running him out there a ton of the time, right? In his last game, 57% of snaps, 33 the week before, 52 the week before. Yeah. But when he's out there, they're getting him the ball. His target per route run is insane over this last 3-week stretch, basically the time since Mark Andrews exited in that game against Cincinnati. We've been seeing Odell Beckham not running more routes, but when he's out there, his utilization is significantly higher. And a similar story with Zay Flowers, right? Like in those 2 full games with Mark Andrews on the sideline, Zay Flowers has a 33% target share. He's averaging over 20 PPR points per game, right? So like, the point that the word that you use that really summarizes this is concentration, right? This offense is really focused on these 3 guys as the core pieces. So you can definitely fire them up with a ton of confidence. I mean, I'd say on aggregate of the lot, I'm probably 7.5, 8 on the confidence scale. Specifically if you're looking for floor, I mean, Zay Flowers has to be all the way up there, 8, maybe 8.5. If you're looking for that upside, likely and Odell Beckham are probably a little bit higher, but they're also a little bit more risky.
A lot better than the freaking backfield right now, I'll tell you that, because Justice Hill's just out there burning snaps. Like, why is Justice Hill for a competitive team? Yeah, dude, it's I don't get it. Let's round it out here with some Falcons. Drake London and Kyle Pitts. London was just a man among boys versus Tampa Bay. Career game, high in receptions, yards, and fantasy points. Kyle Pitts, we love what we're seeing target-wise, or we like it a little bit more. 14 targets over the past 2 weeks, but kind of just scored on a busted coverage here, so it's hard to put a lot of faith into, especially against Tampa Bay, which is such a great matchup. I mean, their secondary is kind of just falling apart all season. So how do we feel about these guys? Because I think realistically, I would probably have them. I don't know if any of them are must starts. Like maybe Drake London, Scott, maybe.
No, well, start him as a wide receiver 3, but he'll have a good game every once in a while, and then he'll be mediocre for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Not somebody I feel confident about putting in a winning lineup every week. I do have him in Scott Fishbowl, where I'm still alive in the
let's go.
fourth week of the playoffs. The last team from the Shake Shack division standing. But with London, I don't have a lot of confidence he can build on last week. Pitts has been a disappointment again, but somebody will draft him next year thinking he's the next Travis Kelce, because it happens every single year. But with Desmond Ridder quarterback, I know Desmond Ridder had a great game last week, but that shows how bad the Tampa Bay pass defense is, as you've indicated. Drake London confidence meter 4. Kyle Pitts 4.
Okay. All right. I'm going to sneak one more in for you, Eric. Jayden Reed, Romeo Doubs. Jayden Reed's been kind of a monster out there. Honestly, reminds me a little bit. And I know people are like giving him the mini Debo comp, but like it kind of reminds me of like what Debo did his rookie year and like flashed real late and kind of came on real quietly. And all of a sudden was like, whoa, Debo's kind of a must start here down the stretch. And that's kind of what Jayden Reed is here. Career high 14 touches on Monday Night Football, double-digit PPR points in 6 of his last 8 games, 15 in 4 of his last 5. He's wide receiver 12 in that span. It's been impressive. I think if he's healthy, he's a must start for me. How do you feel, Eric?
Yeah, so as soon as this week, Romeo Doubs and Jayden Reed are the benefactors of that juicy matchup against the Buccaneers. So you like to see that. A little bit of a tougher out against Carolina, and then close out the season against the Vikings, which is kind of league average in terms of their ability to defend the pass. I think with Reed, he's kind of showing us an example of how rookie wide receivers have historically kind of come on, right? Like we've been spoiled in the last few years with these rookies just coming in and exploding immediately. So it's nice to see the progression. There's a lot to be optimistic about around that. I've been a Doubs guy for the entirety of the season and the offseason. He's much more of that steady possession receiver type. They do go to him a fair amount in the red zone and throw him balls in the end zone. So he does have that scoring.
He's a little touchdown dependent for me right now. I
mean, he's got to get in the box to have a ceiling game for sure, but his floor is pretty steady, right? And that's not nothing when you get into the fantasy playoffs. So
what's the floor? It's like it's been kind of mediocre.
Like 4.
I feel like I can't start him right now.
Yeah, Romeo's tough, but maybe against Tampa Bay though. Maybe that's the time.
Oh yeah,
maybe that is the time.
I mean, it seems like they want to throw to Wicks or even Samari Toure.
Yeah.
Over Doubs.
Man.
Doubs has been mediocre. It's like it's touchdown or bust for him.
Yeah, I honestly would say a 1 for Doubs. I don't think I want to roster him even if Watson's out. And
where I was going,
Romeo Doubs probably like what, Eric? Maybe an 8, like 7 or 8. Like he's almost a lineup lock if he's healthy.
Jayden Reed, you mean?
Sorry, Jayden Reed.
Yeah, I would have him in like the 7 range. For Doubs, I'd probably have closer to 2.5, 3. Right? Like he'll be on the field a fair amount. He gets a decent number of targets, but to really move the needle for you, he's got to get into the end zone.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the analysis, guys. Let's go ahead. Let's answer some people's questions. Let us know in the chat how we can help you this week, and we're going to hop over to From the Forum.
If you're up, stuck, thinking about what to do, here in between, we got advice for you. Back and forth all day, trying to pick the play. Let's hear what them boys here had to say.
Presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network.
All right, this From the Forum presented by the Fantasy Football Advice Network. You can check him out. Yeah, there we go. That's our guy Nate Miller. He does all of our audio and our music on the show. So shout out to him. You can find him on streaming platforms at Ism. He tears it up for us. But But those of you new to the channel, the Fantasy Football Advice Network has been riding with us all season long as one of our favorite sponsors. We can't thank them enough for coming along for the ride. And what they are, guys, is a great platform for you to check out if you want direct access to analysts and also to other fantasy football enthusiasts. You should check them out. This is a platform that combines all these apps like Discord, Patreon, Facebook, Instagram. I can't even have all those apps on my phone. Doesn't have enough storage. So this takes all that, combines it in one place for fantasy football users. You should definitely check it out. It's free to join at fantasyfootballadvice.com. Awesome platform there. So appreciate them powering this segment once again. And let's start here with a question from D-Nero1. I have both Achane and Mostert. Okay, maybe not a question, but a scenario here. A comment, if you would, Scott. How would you feel if you had both Achane and Mostert? Because I don't think I wouldn't hate that.
No, I'd start the two of them every week. It seems unusual, but it's probably maybe them in Detroit where you're the only two situations where you can start both. You're not going to start Jaylen Warren and Najee Harris.
No.
I'm sorry to take a shot at your team like that, but it's just true. You're not going to start McKinnon and Clyde Edwards-Helaire for sure in any league, which is more of a joke than the actual analysis. But the Dolphins have had a premier running game throughout the whole season, and both of these guys can eat in any given week at the same time. And that's because Tyreek Hill opens up everything else for the rest of the offense. Raheem Mostert, 16 rushing touchdowns. I believe that broke Ricky Williams' franchise record for rushing touchdowns.
Smokey.
And he stayed healthy. He's been fantastic. Achane, anytime he touches the ball, he can score from anywhere on the field. You got both? Well, good for you.
Yeah, and Tua almost just barely missed Achane running down the seam there, Eric. Could have been a huge 80-yard touchdown reception. So could have really flipped the switch. And Daenerys saying he started Achane yesterday. I still think I'm starting Mostert over him just because the touchdown equity, Eric. But can we try to get both of them in your lineup, you would think, right?
Yeah, I don't mind the play at all, right? Like you want to find ways to get into this Dolphins offense, and this is a way to do it. The split over the last 2 weeks, it seems like their intention is to lean on Mostert more heavily, right? We saw about a 60-40, about a 2/3, 1/3 split last night. The Washington game where Devon Achane had far more opportunity. A lot of that came 2.5 quarters or so into the game with Miami up pretty comfortably, right? So I think the game plan is going to be a little bit more Mostert. So he's, he'll be the safer play on any given week. But I mean, even with that near miss that you mentioned a moment ago, right? Any given play, Devon Achane can blow a fantasy slate wide open. So I like the idea of pairing those two up together.
Yeah, he's more likely to catch passes out of the backfield.
Yes.
Evens them out.
Yeah, don't be afraid to rip the Doleys, Dinero. One time I rode Tariq Cohen and Jordan Howard the whole way to the fantasy championship. I ended up losing that, but it wasn't their fault. But yeah. Here's a question from a guy at Lucius. He's saying, great show, guys, for playoffs, week 16, 17. Who do you like more, Bills or Broncos? Okay, so we're going to the Bills here first. How do we feel about it? Anyone? I don't know. I feel like you can't have much.
The Bills have a very good matchup in week 16, don't they?
Chargers. They're going to have Easton
Chargers
Stick
and
most
Patriots for the championship.
Yeah, so I'll fuck with that. I can get down with that. Alex Anzalone, kind of been in and out of the lineup a little bit. I think that's kind of been hurting things. If he can have some more consistent play, maybe they get back in form a little bit. And then who are we looking at for the matchups of the Broncos next 2 weeks?
It's actually identical. So the Broncos have the inverse matchup for
no shit.
16 and 17. They have the Patriots and the Chargers. So for me, I mean, I think the Bills defense is a bit more talented than the Broncos side. And I mean, this is the Buffalo team that's playing.
Buffalo has so many injuries, though.
Yeah,
they're always navigating it, right? But At least for me,
I mean, who's
I
going to
feel
get
like
more
Buffalo's
sacks
got a
and
bit more
turnovers?
scoring
That's what it
upside.
comes down to.
That's always the deal with DSTs, right? You gotta try to find that turnover. That's what potentially leads to a score. That's what moves the needle. So both these teams, I should say, are in fantastic spots for 16 and 17. I would lean slightly to the Buffalo side.
Scott, do you lean more Broncos then?
It's almost like a draw for me, but
Yeah.
with all the injuries that Buffalo has on defense, and here's the thing with backup quarterbacks, we can't assume that Easton Stick sucks because everybody is the New York assumption is the backup quarterback sucks. But look at Brock Purdy. Look at what Geno Smith did last year, which should be a backup to Russell Wilson. Look at Jake Browning. It's more that the Chargers are unpredictable than like the backup quarterback is unpredictable when we haven't seen a lot of them. It doesn't mean it'll suck. You know, he could end up looking like Mitch Trubisky. He could end up looking like Brock Purdy. So I would probably lean towards Denver because they get New England first, and we don't know how good Stick is going to look or not. So I'll lean towards more of the matchup that I know first.
Yeah, it's really tough. I think either way, you're going to be in good shape, Lucius, with these matchups coming up. I would say I think when it's all said and done, I think more people are going to go to the Bills. I think they might just be because everyone wants to add, the Sean McDermott defense. So I think more people will congregate there. But the Broncos have actually scored double digits in 2 of the last 3 games. So I think I am with Scott here. I think I would just slightly prefer the Broncos, but very close for me. And great question as well. We appreciate it.
You have to remember one thing about the Broncos and the Chargers too. That's a divisional game for them.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So, and they know the offense, the other team better, and sometimes in divisional games the score gets held down a little more.
Yeah. Appreciate the questions, Lucius and De Niro. Hope you guys are subscribed to the channel. Come back and hang out with us again. And we got Daniel in the chat. Panic meter on DeAndre Swift's ability to generate 13 to 15 PPR points a week through the playoffs at Seattle, the Giants, and Arizona. So opens up to a pretty nice schedule here down the stretch, Eric, but I'm pretty scared of DeAndre Swift. He was my sit of the week at the running back position in week number 14. It came to fruition. He was a fantasy football loser in our article we dropped on Monday as well. There's not a lot to like here when he's not getting the targets. The tush push is going to take any touchdown equity away if they get onto the 1 or the 2. Panic meter, confidence meter, 1 for me. Any difference from you, Eric?
Yeah, specifically to the prompt of getting 13 to 15 points. It's got to be pretty low confidence. A lot of it boils down to him not getting a ton done in the receiving game over these last 3-4 games, right? Like, the touchdown equity is in jeopardy every single week. I'm not quite sure how they do it, but Philadelphia seems to always end up on the 1 yard line, and that score obviously always goes to Jalen Hurts. So it's hard for him to get into the box, and if he's not going to catch 3-4 balls in a given week, he's going to have a tough time getting to that 15-point mark week over week. Any
love from you, Scott? Because I'm good on Swift. I don't want to start him the rest of the way at all.
The schedule's pretty good, but 13 to 15, you're asking for a ceiling more than you are for a floor. I'm kind of glad I made this trade in the Kings Classic a few weeks ago. I traded Charbonnett, CJ Stroud, and Swift for Bijan and Breece Hall.
Oh, my God.
That'll do.
That is why you're the inaugural FSWA Hall of Fame inductee, Scott. That's some gangster shit right there, my friend.
The gangster just squeaked into the playoffs, so...
Hey, a win is a win. We got one from George Play here. What's up, George? Good to see you again tonight, man. Tua or Fields this week? Well, you guys know my answer on this. I'll hand it to you, Scott. Any interest in getting away from Justin Fields? He's just been so damn good lately.
I need to see the matchups here.
Matchup
Tuesday,
is.
I haven't even looked.
Matchup is. Yeah, we're in Cleveland for Chicago, and then Tua, I believe. Where are we at for Tua, Eric?
Is Tua's at the Jets.
Yeah, I can't play Tua against the Jets.
Yeah, I'm good,
Yeah.
especially without Tyreek 100%.
We don't know if Tyreek's going to be out or not. He's day to day, but still, I'm going to go with Fields. I know it's a tough passing matchup, but he can run the ball for sure. So, Tua doesn't have that mobility. It's kind of funny when you actually see him scramble. Like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more mobile than Marino, but he's still not that mobile.
Like a young Big Ben out there.
No, but Big Ben was like, he would break the pocket. He would, etc. I'm trying to remember who they compared to Ben. Like, they said Josh Allen he's kind of like Roethlisberger, but he's more mobile.
Yeah.
But Roethlisberger would break the pocket. They actually throw on the run. Two is just like stick in there, left, like stiff.
Yeah, tough matchups for both of them, but Fields over these last three games.
Take the running quarterback in the tight
18, 12, and 12 rushing attempts, right? So that rushing floor is a difference maker.
It's safe. Last question here. Time to drop Alexander Mattison. This is over from the Fantasy Football Advice Network. Jay Mazzudio is curious about this. And it's a very interesting case here, I think, gentlemen, because we don't know the timeline of the ankle injury. If it's a high ankle sprain, like some fear it might be, who knows when we get Alexander Mattison back, but he could be back a lot sooner. Cincinnati, Detroit, and the Packers. Cincy, not a great matchup against running back as they were a couple weeks ago. Now they've become more of a pass funnel. Detroit haven't allowed a 100-yard rusher all season, but you can score touchdowns against them, 3 in the last 4 games for running backs. And then the Packers, they're a good matchup. So maybe interested in holding him onto him for that potential Week 17 Packers matchup in the championship, Scott?
Yeah, I don't cut a player just because he's hurt, especially if I haven't identified somebody. It's not like you're saying to me, should I cut Alexander Mattison for Deontay Foreman? Should I cut Alexander Mattison for Chase Brown? I don't cut players just to cut them, especially when they're starters. And he could return in a week or two. Respectfully, I don't mean any offense, to the question here. I think it's short-sighted to cut a player when he's injured and you end up making a mistake. It depends on context. Who you cutting them for? But at the same time, if I don't know it's a high ankle sprain yet, I'm keeping him on my roster.
His options: Taysom Hill, Josh Palmer, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jahan Dotson, Kenneth Gainwell, all on the waiver wire.
You got to keep Mattison. You don't cut an injured player just because he's hurt and he can't help you this week. You hopefully staying alive. It's like Taysom Hill, Kenneth Gainwell. There's nothing out there that I want.
Yeah. I think I'm with you there. Any difference from you, Eric?
No, we'll have to keep an eye on the wire to see if we get an update on his injury status. But I mean, Mattison slowly over the last few weeks. I mean, he's got a stranglehold on the volume in his backfield, and he's been getting a little bit more efficient. 4.5 yards per carry 3 games ago. 5.2, then 6.6 last week against Las Vegas before he got hurt. Right, so I mean, you miss him for a game or two maybe. But when he's back out there, specifically in that matchup in the championship game against Green Bay, if he's going to get the lion's share of the work there, and he's getting more and more effective, I mean, he's a nice piece to have in the holster in Week 17.
Alexander Mattison, from a pure viewing perspective, he runs like his hair on fire, and I've never seen any running back run with such intensity to gain 4 yards.
Shot out of a cannon.
Yeah. It's just he's decent.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to lose his job like everybody else did, but you look at him and like, oh, you look so determined, and then you're like, Mattison for 3. It's like
that high energy plotter.
3 yards. Yeah. All this effort for 3 yards.
Yeah, he doesn't have the best endurance, so we can just say that for sure. Let's go ahead, guys.
Well, he's a professional athlete. Better endurance than any of us.
Hey,
I get winded walking to the pizza counter.
Hey, get me out there on. I'm no Bob Harris on the Peloton. I haven't raced Bob Harris on the Peloton, but I hear he's quite fast. However, I'm boogieing. I'm boogieing out there. So I got that endurance. I don't have that speed, but I'm gonna keep pedaling out there. I'm gonna keep it going.
Love it.
All right, let's go ahead and let's round out the show here with In the Scope and talk a little waivers and targets for after they run.
I have the targets in my sights.
Requesting permission to engage.
In the Scope. All right. We're not going to walk you through the mainstream waiver wire targets tonight. You guys can check out the website inbetweenmedia.com, and we have our In the Scope article out there. We also have a waiver wire article from Monday you can check out as well. But a lot of interesting names and people that if you need plug and plays, they're there. If you need some stashes, also there. We usually on this segment, what we like to do is talk about the players who you can get after waivers run. Maybe you're tapped out on Fab. Maybe you've emptied the wallet already, or maybe you're just trying to save it for down the stretch here. Eric, is there a player that you're interested in to potentially grab here after this initial waiver wire clears?
Yeah, it's gonna feel kind of gross, and he should largely be available to you after waivers run or for next to nothing if you want to put a bid in tonight. But Jonathan Mingo. He's rostered in about 17% of leagues. Over these last 2 games, he's had 9 and 10 targets respectively. Basically, he's been on the field for the entire game starting in week 6. He's 92% plus snap share. 8 targets is his average over the course of that stretch of games. And specifically in that last game, I mean, it wasn't the best fantasy outing, but he had 150 plus unrealized air yards. That is one of the stats that is most prone for regression, right? They're still going to him down the field. He had that 45-yard walk-in touchdown that Young overthrew him on, right? So, this is a guy that you can stash on the back end of your bench. You can get him for pennies on the dollar, if not free. And if they continue to make him a point of emphasis, he might have a little bit of upside for you on the back end of your bench.
A little juice if Bryce Young can get it done. Scott, any thoughts here on Eric's call of Jonathan Mingo and anyone you might be interested in after waivers run, whether you're plugging and playing him this week or stashing him here for week 16 or 17?
Yeah, with Mingo, I hope he's right because I got him on my NFFC bench.
Okay.
But, I think a lot of people are going to get scared off of Noah Brown because he's coming off of 2 shutout games.
Mm-hmm.
The first game he came back from the knee injury. The second game, bad weather against the Jets. Somebody's got to step up here. And as much as I love Josh Hayes, my co-host on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, he's like, well, if Dell and Collins are out, you got to pick up Robert Woods.
I'm
like, I don't want Robert Woods in an AFC South only league. Okay, you can't sell me on a guy with negative yardage this past week. I'm sure he's a good NFL player, good for his teammates, but fantasy wise, I got no part of him. Noah Brown's gotta step up. Weeks 9 and 10, 325 receiving yards, big package of speed, downfield ability. I think if Stroud is out this week, still Davis Mills might get him the ball, and somebody's got to step forward in this passing game with all the injuries. I think it's going to be Noah Brown. If not, it might be John Mechie, who keep on the radar. It's not going to be Robert Woods. Robert Woods will have 5 catches for 10 yards.
I'm 100% there with you, man. I got off that Robert Woods train. Actually, I added him after week 1. I missed out on all the Tank Dell fun because I went to my waiver wire and I took Woods over him. So I learned my lesson.
I caught him in the Kings Classic. That's a huge 14-team expert league, and I didn't want him.
Yeah, he's a little dusty. I will throw out 2 real quick for you guys to round out the show. Tucker Kraft, Luke Musgrave, probably not coming back this year as far as the reporting is going. And it's pretty much all Tucker Kraft in the tight end room right now, running just under 100% of routes the last couple weeks here. 17.1% target share in week 13. That's kind of what we want for a tight end. Those upper teens, low 20% target share. And then this week didn't quite get into that range, but did catch all 4 of his targets for 64 yards. Really good matchup here in week number 4 or 15. It's Tampa Bay going to be a top 5 matchup for him. So a little interest in Tucker Kraft, and then the man of the hour, the man of the moment. I'm serious about this. Tommy DeVito might be a guy. Like, he might be a guy. We had Scott here mentioning Linsanity, and like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting around him. And I think definitely in Superflex, he's probably rostered by now, but you could consider him in Superflex if you need a guy in week 16 and 17. Eagles, best matchup for quarterbacks, not only on the season, but the last month. And then the Rams, a top 5 matchup as well. Tommy DeVito, if you need him, even in a one quarterback league, I'm interested here. No, not at all, Scott.
No. Respectfully, that's getting too cute. DeVito's a nice story, but like I said, as we've seen with Josh Dobbs, sometimes these backup quarterbacks can wow us, and then they get film on them, and you want to be able to say, "Hey, I won my fantasy league with Tommy DeVito."
Yeah,
but then it's probably getting too cute. You don't want to start him in a one quarterback league unless you lost Justin Herbert, or something like that. Okay, there, but it's like, we're gonna get you're gonna stir up questions from less experienced fantasy players. Tua or DeVito this week, and like I can't do that regardless of the matchup. He's been fun, but I'm not gonna go overboard with it. It's kind of like when people a few years ago had all this fun with Gardner Minshew when he was just turned out to be good enough to lose with.
Yeah, that's kind of the vibes you get with him, honestly. A Gardner Minshew-esque vibes, like a Tim Tebow during that run, I think back in 2010. Like that's kind of the vibes we're getting. Scott's saying stay clear. Eric, any interest
in one quarterback
in DeVito and one QB for you, like down the stretch? If you're desperate in 16 or 17, it's the Eagles, man. They can't stop anybody. Any interest?
Yeah, I mean the Eagles have been a phenomenal matchup to opposing passing games in general, but I mean realistically, unless you're in the most dire of straits, there's very likely a better option out there for Tommy DeVito, right? He's popped, right? Like he had that Washington game where he was chucking all over the field. He had 3 scores, like that quote unquote type of ceiling, that low 20 ceiling is there, but the likelihood that he gets to that ceiling even in these plus matchups is still pretty low, right? So
Washington's worse than Philly.
Yeah.
Exactly, right. And like if you're in a super flex and you've lost Herbert and you're without Stroud this week and you just need someone to plug in there, I think DeVito can do it. I think he's got a decent enough role in terms of how they use him, but he's got to have so many things go right to really move the needle from a fantasy perspective.
Tommy Cutlets, baby. I might be riding the hype train a little much. I agree. Scott, you ever see a guy like that? Did you see who his agent was? You think that was a little fugazi going on there?
Yeah, I guess he was playing into the role. That was interesting. I was just like, oh boy. It's like there's a stereotype of New Yorkers that forget about it. It's like, I don't know anybody that says forget about it.
Eric, give us forget about it. You got it? You got a little accent in it? If Kyle
got a little
here,
forget about it in the locker. I mean that's about as close as we can get. Forget about it.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys say we can curse. It's like I don't hear anybody say forget about it. It's more like kiss my ears.
We got one question. We're going to get out of here, guys. Appreciate all the support on the channel tonight. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us. Jelly Month, have a bye. His tight end, Freiermuth, week 16 versus Cincinnati, and Goddard. Drop one to grab Isaiah Likely. I'd rather start Likely with the matchups and just Baltimore needing to score than try to trust Freiermuth with Mitch here. Scott, you already gave us your Mitch Macaroni promo earlier. I take it you don't want to go back to Fryer Moose either.
I don't want Fryer Moose with macaroni, Mitch. I'd rather have Kraft.
Oh, well, guys, we will go ahead and end it there. Easiest way to support us here in Between Media is subscribe to the channel. Come back, hang out with us again. We have a lot of great content for you the rest of the NFL season. Eric and I are live on Tuesdays at 9:30 Eastern time, and then again on Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Eric, you can also find him over at Green Screens Media. He is cashing tickets right now in that college basketball scene. And Pros with Joes. I didn't make the playoffs. Scott, did you make the playoffs in Pros with Joes?
No.
This is rigged. This is it's a great cause and it's going to charity. But what is this? This is rigged against us.
I mean, look,
not really. Come on, I'm not going to complain. I'm not one who complains about the refs. People complain about the refs. Some officiating has been very bad, but usually, if you have to complain about the refs, your team didn't do enough to win anyway. So
7-6. I had a winning record, but
I had a lot of injuries. Anthony Richardson going down early really hurt me.
Yeah.
I feel you.
Yeah,
I feel you.
That was my story in Scott Fishbowl.
That's not race. It's not like Eric went out there and tried to trip Anthony Richardson.
Right?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. Eric does some pretty shady stuff behind the scenes, Scott.
One thing that Eric is not as shady.
That's a good point.
If I were to trip anybody, it would be a Colts player, though. But that's just my Texans fandom coming through.
Gardner Minshew, Uncle Rico. What the heck are you doing?
Eric, tell us where we can find you on
Rico in the
socials as
bag.
well, and then we'll tell the great listeners how to find Scott.
Yeah, all of my work rolls up into my Twitter, which is @FantasyNav. Like you mentioned, Green Screens Media is where we're breaking down college basketball. We actually just locked in a live before lock show for tomorrow, so 6 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
We're breaking down the DraftKings slate,
do
going
it.
through all the games, answering your questions, building some lineups. It'll be a ton of fun.
Hell yeah. And Scott, how can we best find you, my man, and support you and everything you're good doing from the Seahawks and Rotoballer and Game Day and everything you got going on, man?
Yeah, check me out at thegameday.com. My waiver wire is up. Also, at thegamedayfootball.com. You can check out my Sunday night betting preview at thegameday.com. I'll have my sleepers and busts, my prop bets over the next few days. Rotoballer, enter King at checkout for a special discount on the season pass for the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
And you get my lineup ranks and my lineup spotlights every week. Seahawks.com, my newest fantasy insider column up now. Go to the news page, fantasy insider tab. You got all my starts and my strategy pieces for week 15. And also on the weekly Seahawks Insiders podcast, I drop my fantasy picks, and SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, Rotoballer Radio every Saturday, 5 to 6 Eastern.
Hell yeah. Well, we appreciate you being here, Scott. He's the inaugural FSWA Hall of Famer, Scott Engel. We appreciate you, Scott. Eric, thanks for being here with us as well, and all the IBT family members for checking us out. We'll be back later in the week. Until then, you know what to do. Keep it in between.